Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hard Nine podcast. Today is March the 14th, exactly 2 weeks from opening day for the St. Louis Cardinals as we open in Chavez Ravine in LA. Before we get to our guest and we get to everything that we have to talk about, I would like to apologize to everyone watching and listening as I adamantly told everyone on here that it was going to be Darvish versus Yamamoto opening day in Korea. It is not. I was not even close, so I am incredibly wrong on that, and I apologize to everyone. Probably should never listen to me again.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's new there, I don't think.
With that being said, the guy that you should listen to, not the guy who just talked, by the way, is this other guy that's with us, Kareem. Thank you so much for Prospects Live. We are so happy to have you with us to talk about the bullpen, to talk about everything else, all things Cardinals. Thank you so much for joining us today, bro.
Thanks for having me. This is gonna be the second time being on the podcast. Uh, Not enough. I got to be on here more. I really enjoy talking to you guys, and yeah, looking forward to speaking about the bullpen and the status of the pitching depth in the organization.
Let me tell you, you are welcome anytime. If you're not getting invited, it's Caleb's fault.
Yeah, sure, it's on
But
me.
before we get, because we do want to break down the bullpen, we do want to break down some of these young new arms that are new to Cardinal fans and who is rising. I saw a couple people got sent down today. We know all of that is happening as well. But before we get to that, the one thing, obviously, in my opinion, the hottest topic right now as a St. Louis Cardinal fan and with St. Louis Cardinals baseball is Victor Scott II. And I would love to get your take as someone who has watched his ascent up to where he is now on whether we believe this is something that can sustain itself at the major league level or if he needs to be at AAA or if any of that really, honestly, with the Tommy Edman injury even matters.
Yeah, so Scott, he's probably the most exciting player in the Cardinals organization right now. Uh, led the minor leagues in stolen bases last year. He's got a great feel for hitting the ball, and we've seen it so far in spring. This isn't going to be a guy that's going to hit for a ton of power, although we have seen him dating back to his college years. He did hit a little bit more power, and I think he does have power projection. He has unbelievable twitch at the plate. But this is going to be more of a contact-oriented player, and what we've seen so far in spring training, he's hitting close to 350, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, defensively, love what I see out of him. We haven't seen him make any highlight real plays, I don't think, so far this spring training. But I tell you, last season between uh, Peoria and Springfield, he would make a highlight reel play pretty much every other day. Like, this kid's unbelievable, very talented, and I love that he's showing off his skills in spring training. But ultimately, I do want to slow down on the Victor Scott hype train a little bit. I would like to see him get a little bit of a taste at AAA before we see him starting every day in center field. He's a great kid, high character guy, but you just never know how a slow start is going to affect a young player like Scott. And I'd rather have him develop his bat in AAA as opposed to in St. Louis as an everyday regular, which it's looking likely, but I don't know. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, and this conversation obviously coming on the heels of Tommy Edman definitely not being ready for opening day. Who knows if he's? I mean, it could be over a month. We don't know. We'll see. I think it's going to be like we find out Tommy's okay, and then he's going to really be back quickly. But until that happens, we just can't guess when he's going to be back. Um, the thing that's interesting about Victor Scott, and I've been saying this on here a lot, is that I'm not sure if it's the right move to put him on the opening day roster. That being said, was right and what the Cardinals will do don't overlap always. After what I heard Ollie say today, which was talking about how he's handling things, asking the right questions, um, you know, good presence in the clubhouse, it's literally copy and paste what he said about Jordan Walker last year. Victor Scott II is going to be in center field on opening day. Whether that's the right move or not, I would bet so much money on it right now, unless he just falls off a cliff. But I say that Jordan Walker fell off a cliff last spring in the second half, and he was still on the roster. So it just seems like this is the same situation last year, aside from obviously Walker had a lot more prospect hype than Victor Scott did.
Yeah,
So that's
I couldn't agree more, Caleb. Similar kind of story this spring with Scott. The fact that, Ollie's mentioning all these things about his character, how he approaches, being in the clubhouse and things like that. It's very reminiscent of what we saw last spring with Walker. And yeah, I 100% agree. It's seeming more likely he's going to be on the opening day roster. Now, would I do that? Probably not. But hey, at the end of the day, we're still going to get to watch this kid, this electric talent play at the major league level. So, I mean, can't get mad about that too much.
The interesting thing to me is I'm not going to say that he's not knocking down the door to make the team. But to be fair, with Tommy out, I don't know what the other option is. Like, if you really honestly want to look at it, are you going to put Burley and Walker in the outfield every day with Dylan in center? I don't know that defensively you can do that. Are you going to put Are you just going to move Brendan Donovan to left field, that which opens up the position or the DH spot also? Like, what are you going to do there? It almost feels like this has all kind of come together for the Cardinals organization to say, hey, we've got this kid who is knocking down the door. Also, by the way, our lack of development has meant, and our trading, we got nobody else. So it's all kind of coming out roses for the Cardinals right now, because I don't know what the other option is if you are going to send Victor Scott down to AAA, which, by the way, I think I agree with both of you that in logic and in theory, it would be so good for him to go ahead and start the year at AAA. I just don't know what the Cardinals' other option is right now.
Yeah, the one thing I hate, and we don't have to spend too much more time on this because we are doing a bullpen episode. But the one thing I hate about it is I don't like altering the path of a prospect based on need at the big league level. I don't really, that's just something I think more times than not is probably going to hurt you. That being said, the way he's performing, like it brings a different conversation up that we don't have enough time to talk about on this podcast, which is how do prospects earn their way on in spring, and when does that really mean anything? Like Bobby Wood Jr. probably got called up too early. Like I don't know, he probably would have benefited from more time in the minor leagues. And now you saw what he did after a year there. That's an interesting conversation. I don't know the answer, but I think he's going to be on the team regardless. Let's get to the bullpen because
hold on, just one question, because I really would like to know both of your answers before we get to the bullpen, which we will. What is it if it's not Victor Scott? What is that? All I want to know is what is the answer?
For me, I'd put Donovan in left. I'd put Carlson in center, and I would have Burley DH.
So then who is your other outfielder? That's all I'm asking.
Walker.
No.
Ciani.
Okay. There you go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just never play him.
Yeah. I mean, he has to make the roster if Scott's not on it. There's no one else that can play center field.
Okay.
But the interesting part about that, and I do agree with that. Oh, yeah, center field. Yeah. Yeah, they're screwed. That's what I think. that's where I'm at. I don't know. Scott's gonna make the roster, so I don't. Whatever. Like he's going to make it, unless especially if he continues to play well. Like it's just trending that way.
Last thing I'll say about Victor Scott, because obviously we do want to get to the pitching, is if he makes the team, he's playing every day in center field. Are we in agreement on that?
He should be.
Okay.
And then you probably platoon Burley and Carlson and left. That's probably what they do.
All right.
All right, you want to get to the bullpen? I want to talk about the guys that are the new guys that the Heimblum guys, we can call them, I guess. But I'm going to start with Riley O'Brien, Nick Fernandez, and Ryan Fernandez and Nick Robertson. Those are the three. Who stood out to you so far? And where are these guys, like, in your mind right now, who's setting up to be on the roster, who's setting up to maybe be in AAA, waiting for a call-up? What do you think of those three?
Yeah, so the first guy I'd like to touch on is Riley O'Brien. This is a guy the Cardinals acquired from the Mariners for straight up cash. And, just seeing what he's able to do in spring training so far, it like amazes me how they were able to get him for pretty much nothing. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that lives mid to high 90s with a primary sinker, gets a lot of run, hitters struggle barreling it. And he's a guy that's added velocity the past couple of years going over to drive line. This spring training so far, he had his highest velocity he's ever thrown so far in a game. So seeing him improve that velocity, but it's not just that. O'Brien's got a nasty breaking ball. I don't even know what to call it. It's like some people call it a sweeper. Baseball Savant classifies it as a curveball. I think it's more of a slurvy kind of breaking pitch, and it's dominant. It might be one of the best breaking balls the Cardinals have right now, to be honest. Last year, um, O'Brien had over a 50, he had not over, he had close to a 58% whiff rate on the pitch in AAA, which just goes to show you it's a great swing and miss offering for him. And a nice compliment with his sinker and curveball. He also added a cutter at Driveline, I think last offseason. And that's a pitch that he threw like a pretty good amount, not as much as his sinker and slurve, but it's a pitch that helps to bridge the gap between those two extreme horizontal moving pitches that move in a completely different direction. So having that pitch as something in between helps tunnel his whole arsenal together. So he's fantastic. I love what I've seen from him in spring training so far, and I do think he's going to break with the opening day team.
Yeah, he seems to really be the guy that stood out from the group. Like we'll talk about Fernandez here in a second. He's been really good as well. But O'Brien just stood out in a different way, I feel like, so far, where every time you watch him, it's just electric. I also think what the Cardinals did this offseason, particularly with that one, that was very smart, was they went and they got him from an organization that had bullpen depth, and was, I think, honestly, the manager's probably pretty cocky about how they've been able to develop bullpen arms and to pick up a guy like O'Brien, where they can probably say, we'll find another one. They traded Justin Topa, who was great last year for him. I think that was really smart. I think we're all in agreement. He's definitely making the roster. Like, there's no way. Like, and now, like we said, coming into the offseason, there was 5 spots that were taken. I think as of right now, 6 spots are definitely taken, and the other 2 are being fought for. Do we agree? Yeah, I think so as well.
Who do we think those other 2 are going to be? Do we have is there any inclination on which way those might lean? Is it going to continue to be fluid for the next 2 weeks, or do we have any sort of idea what those last 2 spots are going to be?
I think Ryan Fernandez is going to break with the ball club. He's a Rule 5 guy. He's going to have to stay with the major league team, or else he would go back to the Red Sox. And I just don't see the Cardinals moving on from him, especially the way he's looked in spring training so far.
Yeah, one of the
And
things
the last one?
Let's get to Ryan Fernandez first, and then we'll
Okay,
go to the last
fair.
one.
That's fine.
One of the things I was worried about with Ryan Fernandez, not him specifically, but just when you pick up a Rule 5 guy in this organization specifically, normally you'll say, like, if he's bad, they'll cut him and, no harm, no foul. With the Cardinals, that's not always the case. It's, we have this guy we're holding on for dear life. So I was worried that he was going to come in and not be as good as the other guys. And then we're going to be like, okay, but they're putting him on the roster because he's the only one you can't send to the minor leagues. I'm pleasantly surprised that he's actually earning his way onto the team. So he's clearly he's been one of the top 7 relievers on the team so far. So him and O'Brien, I think, definitely are going to take those 2 spots. And the thing that's interesting is what they're going to do with that 8th spot. Because I think if you look at the bullpen, it has to be a lefty. John King's been really bad. No offense, John King. It's not looked good. It's kind of looked like what I expected it to look like when we got him last year. So do you think Thompson and Liberatore get a shot at this at the bullpen, and the other one's a 6th starter? Like, how do you think this is going to shake out?
I don't see Matthew Liberatore cracking with the team, to be honest. Thompson, probably. I mean, the way it's looking, I don't know if Sonny Gray is going to make his opening day start. And if he has to go on the IL, Thompson's going to be your next guy up. And we've heard rumblings of them going with a 6-man starter at the start of the season. And if that's the case, Thompson's going to be that guy, I would imagine. So I do think Thompson breaks with the team, and I hope they keep him as a starter as long as possible, even if they have to send him down to AAA because he has options. I feel like having him as a 6th guy is going to be valuable for this team, just because you never know if an injury is going to happen to one of these guys. You've got a very old rotation, so having that insurance with Thompson, a guy that we've already seen flashes of him being a pretty good starter last year, and he's just coming off a really good performance in spring training. So we need to continue to see this guy developed as a starter.
I agree, and he seems like a guy that continues to like progress as well, like add new pitches, do different things. So I really like Thompson. Here's a different question that I have, and I don't know the answer to this, and I don't want to put either of you on the spot, but if you know, please tell me. So everyone's been talking like maybe Sonny misses a start and maybe he misses two. You know, if if he's out opening day, right? So does he have to go on the IL, or could they technically send him on a rehab start before being on the IL, and would that work as well? Like, does he have to go on the 10, 15-day IL?
I don't think he would have to, but he probably would if I had to guess.
What if they
Just to
think he's
add
only
it.
going to miss like one start,
If
and then he'd have to miss three to go on the IL? I
in
don't know
that
the
case, in
answer.
that case, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I can't give a confident answer about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I should have looked it up, is what I should have done, but I didn't.
No,
I don't know.
if I just thinking out loud logically, if you're going to miss at least one, let's go ahead and miss two.
But
Like
you
to
have to
be
miss three,
fair.
don't you? It's 15 days for pitchers, isn't it?
Well, it's 10. I thought it was 10.
Isn't it 10 for position players, 15 for pitchers?
Ooh,
Is that right?
should know that, but don't.
I think that's right. Gosh, this is awful. Great podcast. Great
Yeah,
podcasting
hey,
here,
way to
Caleb.
go, Caleb and Kareem. Way to go, guys. Nice job.
That is how it works. I'm fairly confident. And if it's not, then I'm
Okay.
stupid.
Well, then yes,
Either
then you
way, Sonny Gray looks like he's thinking about starting opening day, which I don't know if
yeah.
I like. What like maybe they could take it off. He knows his body better than I know his body, obviously. But it does seem like, man, that was fast, doesn't it? Like he's probably not making an opening day start and then he's throwing a bullpen 7 days later.
I mean, have they still not ruled out Lars Nootbaar to make the opening day roster, which I found absolutely crazy.
That's wild, right? That's crazy. That almost feels like they just don't want to say it, right?
Yeah.
BT Dubs, you are correct. 15 for a pitcher.
Look at me. So he'd have to miss three starts,
Shout out
three
Google.
turns through the rotation. So that's three
Yeah.
turns through the rotation he's guaranteed to miss if he goes on IL on opening day.
The one thing that always concerns me is we saw this last year, where legitimately the Cardinals were sort of caught with their pants down with Zach Thompson, in where he was pitching very well out of the bullpen, but they wanted him to go to AAA. So just in case, like I don't know what you do with him if he's not, like Kareem said, if they don't go a 6-man rotation. I I know that he's incredibly valuable out of the pen. I completely understand that.
Mhm.
But isn't he? This is my question for you two? Is he more valuable going down to Memphis and being and starting every day? Because again, like Kareem said, and like we've talked about quite a bit on here, you've got 5 guys who are over the age of what, 34, 33 in your starting rotation. I'm just like, it, knock on wood, but the odds say something's going to happen to one of them. And then if Zach Thompson is in your bullpen, now if this is 2 months down the road, he's probably not stretched out ready to go to be a starter.
Yeah, for me, if I'm putting one of them in the bullpen, it's Libertor. Like I'm not completely out on Libby as a starter. I don't want to say that, but I do kind of. I think this is the chance for him to really pave a way to at least be very valuable this season. And I don't know if you want him being the next guy up right now. Like, not that he can't do it. It's just Thompson's kind of shown more for me. And even if it's past Thompson, there's going to be guys like Gordon Graceffo and Roby maybe later in the season that you might want to give a look to. And I don't know where Libertor fits in that order, but I don't know if it's, I don't think it's ahead of, definitely not Graceffo or Thompson for me right now. I don't know what you think, Kareem, but I think Libby might be able to be a Kevin Segrist in the bullpen. Like, he can give you a season like that. I guarantee it. And that's more valuable than just continuing to say, is he going to be able to get into the sixth inning with velocity consistently, or is he just going to continuously get hit really hard third time through the order?
Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the coffin with that, Caleb. I do agree with you. I think there's still an outside shot that this is going to be a starter long term, but I almost feel like it might be better this season to just go to Memphis, pitch out of the bullpen, focus on your slider and your off-speed pitches, because the fastball, despite the velo, it's not that great. And yeah, I feel like just going into a more one inning role, he could just focus on his secondaries more and just maybe have a velo uptick. We've seen Matthew Liberatore have some concerns when it comes to sustaining velocity. So yeah, I agree with you. I think he might be a pretty good option out of the bullpen. And I like the AAA depth enough for him to be a reliever in AAA as opposed to a starter.
Yeah, do you think Roby's going to be in AAA or AA? Because that AAA, every time I try to figure out that AAA rotation, I come up with 12 names that could be in the rotation. So like, are they going to have to send him to AA just because of the quantity of guys they have at AAA right now?
Yeah, he's going to start at triple or double A most likely. I would say Hens too.
Yeah, hence that. Yeah, he definitely I think should. Last year he had a tough AA because of some injuries, but um, so I do want to go over some guys that we're very familiar with just to get it out of the way. And we'll start with Helsley and Gio because they've been around a while and we know who they are. What's your confidence level in them? They're very different guys, I think, in confidence levels for a lot of people. But what do you think of those two if we're going into this season saying these are probably our 8, 9 guys as we stand right now? Do you like that? I mean, specifically with Gio, because I think a lot of people have concerns over Gio right now.
Yeah, I feel pretty good, honestly. When we're looking at Helsley, this is a guy who's been one of the best relievers in baseball the past couple of years. Made an all-star game, obviously 100-mile-an-hour fastball, nasty breaking ball. He's what you would ask for out of a late inning reliever. He's the embodiment of what a closer is nowadays. Um, and yeah, MLB Network ranked him as the second best reliever in baseball. This is just a dominant relief pitcher. This spring, we have seen the velo a little bit down. I don't know how much to be concerned by that because we've seen in the past with him, he has sometimes his velo is a little lower. So I don't know what to make out of that. Like, is he not going 100% in spring training or but he seems healthy, so
Yeah. The
um
one thing I will say about that, just to add maybe a little bit of context, because I remember last year, I think the same exact thing happened. Where his
yeah.
first few outings, it was like he's throwing 95 and below. And I think it might just be him trying to stay healthy, especially coming off last year of another injury plagued season. Because I love Ryan Helsley, but he has 2 of his last 3 years have been hampered by injuries. So I would imagine it's nothing to be worried about yet. But I think if we get to, like I said, Arizona when they're playing the Cubs before they go out to LA and it's still around 93 to 95, then it's at least like raise an eyebrow. But for now, I think I'll let it fit. I'll let it ride. But also, like, he's also interested in an extension, is what he said the other day. Yes or no, Kareem? Would you sign Ryan Helsley to an extension? I'm not even throwing dollar figures out because I don't care. It's not my money. Would you sign him to an extension?
I mean, this is tough. Ryan Helsley is one of my favorite players in baseball right now. I absolutely love him, but man, relievers are so volatile. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know if I'd be willing to give him upwards of 20 million a year on a
Do you think that's what it
long-term
would be?
contract. I mean, probably.
Like you got to think he would be. I mean, if he's a very smart guy, he'd probably be at least saying, "I have to get close to what Josh Hader just got."
Yeah,
But if you're
absolutely.
the Cardinals, then you say, "Well, you haven't done what Josh Hader's done," and then I don't know where that conversation goes from there. But like, yeah, I would definitely be in talks with him. But if it gets up to that number, I don't know how you can stomach it. What about you, Dad?
Well, okay, no. By the way, that's my short answer. I am a
What if
Ryan
it's
Helsley fan
reasonable?
as I'm a Ryan Helsley fan as well. However, there is a guy who's going to be on the market next year, I believe, who sat in my classroom, who played baseball for me, for
Who has a
us.
broken
Actually, I can't
back?
say me. That I would much rather spend that money on than Ryan Helsley, and that's unfortunately a guy who's injured right now. But that's Devin Williams. And if we're gonna be honest, I'm sorry. Like, if I'm gonna spend a lot of money on a guy over 3 years, I want Devin Williams over Ryan Helsley. That is, I'm coming from a level of bias right now, so there is that as
Well,
well.
well, I think Devin's the best reliever in baseball right now, in my opinion, when
Agreed.
he's healthy. The thing that's interesting about Helsley right now is if you're the Cardinals, and I'm not ever in favor of owners paying players less, but just from a perspective of would you make this deal, this might be a good time for Ryan Helsley to sign a contract just because like he's had some injury problems and he could if he could guarantee $60 million over 5 years, it'd be hard to say no to that. And if I'm the Cardinals, I do it. Like
5 years for Ryan
if
Helsley.
what if you get? I mean, if you get 3 great years out of him, that pays for the 60 million right there. I mean, it does. Like you
I'm
might
not
get it
doing
two
that for
years
a
where they're not
reliever
great.
who's had injury concerns, but that is me. I'm only one human.
I think
Jordan
his
Hicks just got
contract
44 million.
I think his contract would be a lot more than 560. Maybe not years, but just AAV. I think he would get
Yeah,
more than that.
I
So
think so
Kareem,
too.
you
I do
kind of
think
looking at
though.
360 is what you're looking at. 3 years, 60 million.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no. That's a no for me.
Okay, fine. You hate Ryan Helsley. It's fine. We'll move
Do
on.
not appreciate you putting that out there, but no. Let me ask you guys this, because I am intrigued by this. Do you think that it is set up? Obviously, you got JoJo from the left side, and then you got. Do you think it's set up that Gio is going to be that guy, or do you think Kittredge is going to maybe push that eighth inning role a little bit more? We've seen a lot of work with Gio. What do you guys think about right there in that eighth inning role with a lead? Do you think that is Gio, or do you think they go Kittredge in that role, or do you think it maybe is just one of those things that's fluid?
I think it's going to be a revolving door, to be honest. Whether it's Gio, Kittredge, Middleton, JoJo, I think all those guys are pretty much grouped into the same tier of how good they are, in my opinion. And it's just going to depend on matchup and things like that.
The thing
I
I love
love that
about
answer,
that
by the
is
way, because it's nice to have three guys you can either go off based off matchups, you can go based off rest that someone needs. The idea that you've got three instead of every night it felt like Gio then Helsley, like that was all you had. It felt like for the last couple of years. I love the idea that you have options here in this Cardinal bullpen, late inning options.
the even better thing about that is Gio doesn't have to face lefties that are going to crush him. Like, I don't want to see Gio facing a lefty unless he's bad. Like ever. Unless like I don't want to see it. It hurts my head that he faces so many lefties. They just crush him because of his pitch arsenal. But also, one thing on Kittredge that I thought was interesting that Gould brought up was he said that he thinks they're gonna use him like everywhere in every inning they can, basically, because that was one of the reasons they brought him in, because he's literally pitching all 9 innings because he opened games for the Rays and he's pitched all the way throughout. So I think he might be one of the guys they like to keep fluid and not locked into a spot. The guy I'm keeping my eye on is Keenan Middleton, because I think he could end up really taking a spot in the late innings and just being like, okay, he's our setup guy because he's just too good not to have him back there.
Absolutely. I think Keenan might be the second best swing and miss option in the bullpen behind Helsley. When you take a look at the stuff this guy has, 3 quality pitches. He actually throws his changeup and slider more than his fastball, which I find fascinating. Throws his changeup over 50% of the time against lefties. Against righties, throws his changeup and slider more than his fastball. He has unbelievable feel for all 3 of those offerings, especially the changeup. Being able to throw it that much against righties, and yeah, like Caleb, 100%, like could see this guy being the second option behind Helsley out of the bullpen.
The
Let
thing
me
that I
ask you guys this
loved
also. Sorry, Kate, go ahead. Go ahead.
the thing that I loved about Middleton when we signed him was, I think sometimes when you sign relievers and you see like they have a few down years, which he did have before last year, you want to see that there's like a tangible change that led to him being good and not just like better luck, better situations. His changeup usage just skyrocketed, and it was like a tangible change. This is why he was more successful last year. So hopefully they continue to tap into that. But that's all I wanted to say, is that I like that he actually, like, there's a reason why he got better. It's not just, oh, he just got better because balls were being hit at people.
Yeah, I agree, and it feels really nice. Like I said, we've talked. But bullpen has been really good so far this spring. Is the number one concern for this bullpen our starters? Like, is that the number one? Honestly, it's not the stuff, it's not the usage, but is honestly the number one concern for this bullpen our starters. We've seen it over the last what 3 to 5 years here in St. Louis, where our bullpen is gassed come June.
10
And
years.
there you go. Well, I was trying to be kind, but you are correct. But is that honestly, do you guys believe the number one obstacle, like the only thing in the way of this bullpen being one of the best in Major League Baseball?
Maybe. I will say, like, they did get a lot of guys like a Lance Lynn, a Kyle Gibson, Sonny Gray. They're going to pitch a lot of innings. It might not be quality innings for Lynn and Gibson, but they pitch a lot of innings. So I think they're gonna be in a better position than they were last year. But yeah, that might be the biggest obstacle. I don't know. I really like the bullpen. I think it's gonna be a top 10. I think it's gonna be a top 10 bullpen in baseball this year.
Yeah, the thing that I'm really interested to see is Ollie knowing that they got Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn, because even if they're going to give up 4 runs or 5 runs, they're going to get into the sixth. They're going to do that thing Wayno always did, where he'd have a really bad first and second inning, and then somehow you look up, he's in the 7th inning, and you don't know how it happened. I'm interested to see if Ollie lets that happen. If he doesn't, because he has that killer instinct sometimes, where he'll say, we have a chance to win or lose this game right now here in the fourth inning. Bases are loaded. Are you going out and taking Lance Lynn out of the game, or are you keeping him in? And if your bullpen's really good, it's going to be even more appealing to go take him out of that game. So Ollie really has to be on board with this plan of letting the guys eat innings. And there's going to be games where it really hurts you, because you're going to have that situation where we could take him out here with bases loaded, or we could leave him in to eat 2 more innings, and then he gives up a grand slam and the game's over. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But I mean, there's going to be games I think it probably costs you, and maybe it helps you in the long run. I don't know.
You know what I cannot wait for? Like, I will say this. I'm obviously the Victor Scott stuff reminds me of Vince Coleman. It reminds me of Willie McGee. It reminds me of Lonnie Smith. It reminds me of Tommy Herr, Ozzie Smith. Those teams that I grew up watching as a kid. All right. And I obviously got to see Bob Forrest, John Tudor, Joaquin Andahar, 3 of my favorites. However, if you were to list for me in my lifetime, my 3 favorite Cardinals pitchers, it's Waino, Carpenter, and Lance Lynn. Those are my favorite personally. I'm not saying they're the 3. Those are my personal favorites. I cannot wait until Ollie goes out in about with 4 2/3 and tries to get the ball from Lance Lynn. Like, I cannot wait for that to happen, because we know what Lance Lynn is going to say to Ollie. Like, we've seen how he's handled this in the past, and that's what I absolutely love about that guy. There aren't, in the last 20 years, we haven't had a lot of those guys. Carp, Waino, John Lackey, Lance Lynn. In my opinion, those are the 4 guys that are like, don't ever fucking come out here and try to take the ball from me. And I cannot wait till Ollie goes out there, sashaying out there, trying to get the ball from Lance Lynn. And he just, like, literally, I cannot wait for that
Chokes
to
him
happen.
out.
That's going to be epic.
Well, hopefully it doesn't happen much, because that means he's not pitching very well. But
it's going to
will
happen,
definitely
though,
happen.
over the course.
Definitely
it's going to happen,
Yes,
and I
it will.
cannot wait to see it.
Probably multiple times, yeah.
I know Cardinals fans are sick of hearing this, but I really do think adding Lance Lynn, Sonny Gray, and Kyle Gibson, along with the bullpen additions with a Kittredge and a Middleton specifically, I think getting that veteran leadership in that clubhouse, guys that have been around, I think that's vital for the development of all these young pitchers that are going to be in AAA. So, yeah.
Can I
I
tell
agree.
you
I think they've been looking
Kate.
for a Lance Lynn since he was gone. Like, they've been looking for a guy like that.
100% agree. The hilarious thing about Twitter, and I love Twitter because it has obviously, like I think McAfee said before, it's a focus group. Like, I love it. Here's what kills me. We need leadership. Same fans, go sign Trevor Bauer. Like, you just cannot make up fucking Twitter. That's what makes it so great. Is like, you cannot make that up. Like, yes, give me Lance Lynn, give me Kyle Gibson, give me Sonny Gray, give me Middleton, give me Kittredge all day long in that dugout, in that whatever they're in that room. Give me those guys. But then you get the people, well, we need the leadership, but let's go get this guy who has never been a leader in his life. Larry, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah. I don't even want to talk about him anymore. I'm so over it.
It just makes me laugh every day.
Well, yeah, people on Twitter just that place is wild. It seriously is it's like you're stepping on landmines every time you
Wild West, bro. Wild West. Hey, let me ask you this, Kareem. I know that we're focusing on pitching. I know we've talked about that, but there's one guy who I have become a massive fan of after the trade deadline last year. And we're going to get to those guys who are maybe those up and comers pitching wise. But talk to me about Thomas Saggese and maybe the climb that you have seen with this guy, or is this who Thomas Saggese has been ever since he's been in the minor league? I'd never, no lie, never heard this guy's name until we traded for him, and now I have fallen in love with this dude.
Yeah, Thomas Saggese rakes, and this has been a guy that's raked at every single level. Gets a little underrated due to just like when you take a look at the underlying data, it's not like, especially with the exit velocity, it's not going to stand out particularly that great. But what he does do a remarkable job at is hitting the sweet spot of the bat, hitting line drives in ideal launch angles, pulling fly balls. So I think some of those exit velocity numbers are not as important as, a lot of people are, viewing them as.
Yeah, Nolan Arenado's proved that for a long time. It's if you can optimize your swing consistently, then you're going to have a lot of success. Like, that's just the reality of it, especially for Busch Stadium, where guys who come over and pull the ball in the air have a lot of success. Like Tyler O'Neill in 2021, one of the biggest differences between that year and every other year, he was pulling so many fly balls and they were going out. Every other year he wasn't doing that consistently, and he was injured. But I do think exit velocity is a great tool because it does, like, that's what they said about Jordan Walker. Like, exit velocity doesn't slump. Like, if you're hitting the ball hard, you hit the ball hard. But if you can hit the ball in the optimal angle, like, could you imagine what Jordan Walker could do if he lifted the ball in the air more? My God, the guy would hit 50 homers every year. So, like, I do like guys like that. And I think the exit velocity, like, it's great, but it also has to be put in perspective when you talk about hit tool.
The one thing I love about JC, and I'm not there every day, like, and again, I have not watched him as he has
He's
gotten to
not in
where
the
he is
clubhouse,
now.
guys, just in case you wondered.
Dude, what'd you say?
I said you're not in the clubhouse, just in case people
I'm
were
not.
wondering.
I am not in the clubhouse. But what I love about him, just watching him and just watching the stuff that I see from people who are down there, Gould and everybody else covering him, he just feels like he belongs. Like he feels like nothing is too big. I am made to be a major league. I was born to be a major league baseball player. I fit here. Everything I do looks like I belong in the major leagues. And that I absolutely love that about guys at that age who are just like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be every fucking day.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get a little bit more time in shortstop, maybe even the outfield, just to, diversify what he brings as a ball player. I think if he's a utility guy, at the end of the year, that could be very valuable for this team.
Well, Kareem, one thing we know about the Cardinals, they do not turn other guys from a position and make them outfielders. So that's probably not going to happen here.
He'll be in center field tomorrow. Yeah, no, for JC too, like, I love Tommy, and I'm not saying kick him off the team, trade him now. But I do think there's a path forward here.
You called him Wally Pipp.
I did not. I said he could get Wally pipped.
Hold on. You literally said we have a Wally Pipp situation on our hands.
Okay, if you would go back and look, that's quite literally not what I said. You just misquoted
it's pretty
me, but we're moving
close.
on. Okay, dude, get off of it. That's not what I'm saying. I like Tommy Edman a lot, but I do think there's a world where here in the next year, they to decide that his salary might not be worth what they're going to get out of him, especially if Victor Scott and Mason Wynn stick at some point in the next 12 months and they want to go that direction. And if you have a guy like JC who can fill some of those roles, not center field, but maybe shortstop and play left field and play second, that'd be great, especially with his hit tool, because he's probably going to bring a lot more offensively than Tommy really ever has. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Dad.
Kareem, you brought it up. Do you think the JC's going to essentially be the everyday shortstop in Memphis? Do you think that's what they're going to try to put him in there? I mean, I know you got Prieto, you've got Fermin. Like, how do you see that sort of shaking out down there?
I'm going to be honest. I don't really know where he's going to play. He's definitely better suited for second base or third base. I would say Prieto probably plays second, so maybe Sajasi starts at third. But regardless, I think this is a guy that should get a lot of time at shortstop. I mean, you got nothing to lose playing him there.
Yeah, you think it's like a Paul DeYoung situation where it's just like, why not? And hopefully it works out as well as that did.
Yeah, I don't know if he has the defensive tools that Paul DeYoung really had, shifted over. But we're looking at more of a guy that could play short in a pinch. I don't think this is ever going to be like a full-time shortstop or anything. But hey, if he can play it, I think it just adds to his game. Just
it adds a ton of value, even if he can play for like 10 days. Yeah, if he can just go there when you need him.
Yeah, even if it's to the caliber of someone like Brendan Donovan. I mean,
just having that option, it's like, that's how you get on a roster. Just to have that option if you need it.
Carry 4 gloves with you, right? I mean, we know that's a good thing to get on the team. Let me ask you this. So Caleb and I've talked about this quite a bit on here, and we're going to make a trip. So if you want to come down to Memphis, Tennessee with us, we are going to go to a weekend series there because I cannot wait to see this pitching staff in Memphis. Like, you just talked about Hentz and Roby probably going to Double-A Springfield. But if you look at the team that is going to be there, their rotation, their bullpen, 1 to 12, 1 to 13 on that Memphis Redbirds team, there are a lot of guys who are going to be in that staff that probably could be on a major league roster throughout the MLBs. MLB. There we go. Language. You know where right. You know where I'm going with that. So I'm really intrigued to see who those starters are, how they use all of those guys that they have down there. Because one thing I think the Cardinals did a really good job with last year at the trade deadline and in the offseason is bringing in arms that are not necessarily major league ready right now, but are right on the cusp of that.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, with the trade deadline, they brought in Adam Kloffenstein, Sam Roberza. those are two names that are going to be in AAA. We've got Michael McGreevy, who's probably going to be at the top of that rotation. I wasn't the biggest fan of McGreevy coming out of the draft, but I think I've really grown to appreciate his game. He's not going to be a guy that's going to strike out a ton of hitters, but I think he does a good job at locating his sinker, gets a ton of ground balls on that, and his breaking stuff looks much better this spring training. He's getting a lot more sweep, a lot more depth on his curveball. The slider looks better too, and I really envision this guy as a back end starter, which I don't know if I saw that entirely at the draft, but yeah, he continues to improve with what I've seen in spring training, and I'm really encouraged by what I've seen, and like hopefully he can bring that into the start of the season with Memphis.
Yeah, my hope is he becomes what the Cardinals thought Dakota Hudson was. That's what I hope. Like a guy that's like legitimately going to be able to get you 6, 7 innings a night and not have days where he literally doesn't know where the strike zone is. Like that's what I want Michael McGreevy to be. Because here's the thing: like first round draft picks, a lot of guys want you want them to probably swing big a lot of times in that area because there's a lot of really great players that turn out like George Kirby's that the Cardinals passed on to end up being great. But if he becomes a fifth starter, and he's like there every year around a 4.2 ERA, and he's giving you 180 innings. That's a really great pick, but he's got to develop more to see if that comes. But I do think he's one of the guys in the minor leagues that you can almost pencil in as he's going to be a major league starter at some point. And I think a lot of other guys, will he be a reliever? We don't know. And it's at least nice to have one of those guys that you think is definitely going to be in a rotation at some point.
Graceffo be at AAA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
How do you think that rotate? Do you think we're looking at Liberatore then in that rotation as well? Or how do you see that shaking up down there in Memphis? Because like we know there's always those guys, like in the past we've had Jake Woodford, the Memphis train has been coming up I-55 quite a bit. So I'm intrigued just to know. Like, obviously you've got Thompson, he might be at the major league level. He might start the year at Memphis in the rotation. I'm really intrigued to see how that kind of lineage goes there on what is coming up next.
Yeah, I would expect the rotation to somewhat consist of Liberatore, McGreevy, Graceffo, Samra Burza, and Adam Klopfenstein. Those
You
five.
think Drew Rom is in there too, and
And
they do 6, man?
yeah, probably. Those are probably the 6.
Drew Rom would be such a fun reliever. I feel like he could do some weird things. I really do. Like he could be a guy that you bring in like right before Ryan Helsley, and it's just like completely different guys. They have no idea what to do with that. That'd be fun, but that's not gonna happen.
He's looked really good this spring.
He's so interesting to me because he had some really good strikeout numbers in the minors, but he like throws 88. It's so weird. He's so weird that I think he can almost work, especially as a reliever, because you bring him in, like you pick your spots with him, and you get him against 2 lefties. And it's just like I don't know what to do with this guy. It's just strange what he's doing to me. That's what I've envisioned for him. But do you think they're going to make him a reliever at some point, or at least try it? Because like, what are the odds he ends up cracking a rotation, like a 5-man rotation for the Cardinals?
I do think ultimately he's going to be a reliever, and I really impressed by how the arsenal could play out of the bullpen. I think he might be a pretty good reliever for them. So yeah.
One of the things the Twins do very well is they bring guys out that have very different looks. Like every guy on the Twins is a very different pitcher in their bullpen. And I think a guy like Rom could fit really well in that, but we'll see if they end up doing that. I want to talk about Dylan Cease trade for a second because this is a big topic. Cardinals wanted Dylan Cease. Well, Cardinals Twitter did. I don't know how much the Cardinals wanted him. So the thing that frustrates me, and I see this sometimes, and I get the thought process behind it because logically it makes sense, but it's more complicated than this. We're like, okay, the Padres traded their number 7 and 10 prospect, whatever it was. Like, well, who's the Cardinals 4, 7, 10 prospect? And it just doesn't equal out that way. My question is, 1, what do you think of the haul that the Padres gave up to get him? And 2, do you think the Cardinals realistically could have and or should have matched that offer to try and get him in St. Louis?
I thought it was a pretty good haul, to be honest. At first, we thought it was only going to be those 2 pitchers, but with the addition of Zavala, who's a very high talented outfield prospect, I think White Sox did a pretty good job on that trade. And would I do that? I just don't know. I mean, like you said, I'm pretty sure someone on Twitter mentioned that the prospects the Cardinals would have had to give up would have been like Tekoa Roby and Tink Hens, along with Juan Pincho. I don't know exactly who said that, but I saw that on Twitter, and that's probably what it would have taken to get a Cease. And I just, to be honest, I love Dylan Cease, but I don't know if I'd be willing to do that.
It's also like the Cardinals just can't afford to do that. Like they don't have anyone. You trade Tink Henson, Tekoa Roby, who, prospects, pitching prospects are fickle. We all know that. But my God, what do you have after that? It's like, what do we have to dream on? We're just going to sign 5 starters every year. So I think if the Cardinals had a farm system like the Padres do, where they just seem to replenish that thing every year. Like they traded for Juan Soto and then still have like a top 10 farm system in baseball before this trade. Now I don't know where it ranks. The Cardinals aren't really able to do that as quickly as AJ Preller and the Padres have been able to. So as much as I would have loved Dylan Cease here, and I kind of thought the price was going to be lower than it was because of how long it took. I get the Cardinals not doing it. Like I don't think I would have had the stomach to do it either. What do you think, Dad?
To me, it almost feels like it was Padres or bust. Like I don't know that there was anyone else. Again, we won't know, but I don't
The
know that there was
Rangers were
anyone
involved,
else.
and they could beat anyone that they wanted, but they just probably didn't want to.
Who did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The Rangers and their farm
Oh, the
system is just
Rangers. Okay,
unbelievably
that makes
stacked.
sense. Right, that makes sense. Right. Outside of the Rangers and the Padres, I just don't know what the interest level was from a lot of other teams because, like Kareem said, giving up that was a pretty. I'm no prospects expert, but I'd heard of all three of those guys. That means I know. Like that means they're probably pretty good if I've heard of them. Like that's what that tells me. So I feel like the White Sox, unlike the Tatis deal, probably did pretty well with San Diego on that one. I'm just so intrigued by the Padres every year.
Kind of
They
like
have
them
done this
now.
so many times in my lifetime, and they have never won a World Series. Like never won a World Series. And I don't know that this year is any different, even adding Dylan Cease.
I really like that rotation now, though. Like you go whatever order you want to put them in, but it's Cease, Musgrove, Darvish, King. I really like Michael King. I think he's going to be a good starter if he can stay healthy and throw a lot of innings. That's really good top 4. Like really good if they're healthy.
I
Yu
agree.
Darvish is kind of on the downturn, but their offense is like you get past the big 4. I guess you want to throw Hassan Kim in there, and it's like, yeah, where are we going after this? Like
You
they have one outfielder right now. Like
remember
they have
last year,
one.
you were the one guy, I will give you massive props, who was lambasting the Dodgers lineup. I feel the same way about the Padres lineup. You get past the top 4, and it's like you said, yuck. I just do not see the Padres going to the World Series this year, even after adding Dylan Cease.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
could
you
be
never
wrong.
know, but I want to ask you a question, and this isn't about the Cardinals, so if you don't know, just tell me to shut up, Kareem. Jackson Merrill, a really exciting young prospect for the Padres. Why is he in the why is he making a major league debut already? Like he only played what he played like 40 games at Double A last year, is that right? Something like that. And he
Yeah.
had a good season, but it wasn't even like it wasn't great. It wasn't like Jordan Walker where it's knock your socks off. This guy just killed Double A. He was really good. But what do you think about guys like him, 20 years old, after jumping straight to the major leagues from Triple A? I'm from Double A.
I mean, Merrill's made a really big he stood out a lot in spring training. He's having a really good spring. And you talked about it. The Padres situation in the outfield isn't the greatest right now. And Merrill's looking like he's going to be in that starting outfield in opening
The
day.
center fielder, it's crazy. He was a shortstop 2 weeks ago. It's wild. They have a whole shortstop team.
Yeah, so I didn't really envision this happening, but with the Padres, you just never know. They're so aggressive when it comes to trades and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, if it was the
770
Cardinals,
OPS.
if this was the Cardinals, Merrill would definitely not be
No.
starting with the big league team. That's for
No, I mean
sure.
seven. I mean, this isn't to hate on Merrill. He's a top 20 prospect in baseball, wherever you want to put him in that top 20. 770 OPS in the minor leagues at 19 years old. Like he's now jumping AAA. It's crazy to me. I hope he does well, but my gosh, why is he playing center field? He's a shortstop. The Padres are wild. Somebody needs to do an experiment on the Padres because they do some of the craziest things I've ever seen, and they don't even care. They don't apologize.
They
It's
have
wild.
a 17-year-old catcher who might make a major league debut this year. So there you go.
That's crazy. Someone said Ethan Salas might be up this year.
I,
Like,
that's what
I
I'm
don't even know why
saying.
he was in Double A last year. That made no sense. It's wild. That organization, seriously, they need documentaries on them. Screw the Red Sox and the Netflix thing. Go to San Diego because I want to see it.
Hey,
But
Kareem, while we got you here, a couple questions for the people listening, for the people viewing. By the way, thank you for all of you doing that. We greatly appreciate y'all. But talk talk to our audience a little bit about a guy on the offensive side and a guy on the pitching side that's maybe at the lower levels, maybe Springfield or below, that we should either keep an eye on, not necessarily for 2024, but moving forward, that's a guy that you could see becoming a mainstay either in a Cardinals lineup or in the Cardinals rotation or in the bullpen.
Yeah, so on the pitching side of the ball, I'm going to go with Zach Showalter, a guy that was in the Jack Flaherty trade. By the way, Jack Flaherty looks terrific so far. He's looking the best I've ever seen him, to be
Of
honest.
course he does.
Yeah.
I love it for him, though. I love
Me
Jack.
too.
I hope he
Me
does
too.
great.
Yeah, so Showalter, I talked about him in our last podcast, but this is a guy that throws from a really low vertical release and still gets right on his fastball. It's a really good pitch. Still needs to figure out the secondaries, but I mean, this is still a guy that's really young, so he has time to do that, but really impressed with someone that has a fastball that quality already. And he's already had success in his short time in the minor leagues. So just going to need to see that for an extended period of time. I wonder if he starts the season at Palm Beach just because he hasn't pitched a ton. Um, but yeah, he's the pitching guy. He's my pitching selection of a guy that is in the lower levels that I'm really interested by. And on the offensive side of the ball, I'm gonna say let me think about this actually.
I put you on the spot there. I understand that. Now
Yeah, you just threw
talk
him
to me a
under
little
the
bit about
bus.
your guy that you were incredibly excited about last year during the draft, Chase Davis.
Oh yeah, Chase Davis. We haven't seen him in spring so far. I'm looking forward to seeing him in the spring breakout on Friday and Sunday. Um yeah, his numbers last season weren't particularly great in Palm Beach. Were very similar to what he did in the Cape Cod League. So um going to need to see him improve with the wood bats, improve the quality of contact, but he was still making a lot of contact. The swing decisions were still good. He's athletic, probably going to project as a above average defensive corner outfielder. So it's just about that quality of contact taking a step up, which I'm pretty bullish on. I think Chase Davis is a tremendous talent, very high character guy. It's hard not to love this guy. And yeah, he's the one guy in the Cardinals farm system right now that I'm just most excited to watch this season.
Where do
I'm
you think he
excited to
starts?
see. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, that's on me,
I would say probably Palm Beach just because he didn't particularly play well last season there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's in Peoria. It'd be one of the two.
Yeah, because that was one of the things when he was coming out of the draft, when people were talking about his Cape Cod League stats and how his wood bat, he wasn't hitting for much power with the wood bat. And there is definitely something real to that because with a metal bat, there's just more margin for error when you're going to hit the ball harder. But I think a guy with his hit tool and his ability to adjust, just look at his strikeout rates in college and how much he changed his approach throughout his career there. He's going to figure it out. Like to what extent, I don't know, but I think he's going to figure it out and probably be a top 10 prospect in his organization until he's called up for his entire career down there. That's my opinion, though. I really like Chase Davis.
Same. Looking forward to the June draft. Obviously, lots going to change between now and June, right? We know that. But do you like last year we saw the Cardinals go heavy on college bats? Do you think this year now maybe it's one of those cycles where we go back to either high school or younger pitchers, or do you think they're going to kind of blend the two going forward? Obviously, you've got to retool at every level every year, but what do you kind of see the Cardinals as their MO moving forward when it comes to the draft, at least in 2024?
I think they should go with best player available. And
Same.
at the top of the class, I would say college position players are definitely heavy at the top. Obviously there's Chase Burns. I think he's going top 5. But after that, we're looking at
I hate
Hagen.
I hate it. He should be a
Yeah.
Cardinal, but the draft screwed us. The lottery screwed us. It
Yeah, but
screwed us. Could you imagine if we had Chase Burns in our farm system? We can't have anything good over here.
yeah, but I mean, after Chase Burns, you've still got a Hagen Smith, a Trey Savage,
Mhm.
um, Brody Brecht. Definitely some names, but I see them more as mid to late round talents right now, just based off what I've seen and the data I have. But but yeah, I'd like them to go with best player available. If Chase Burns is somehow available at 7, I'm not going to get everyone's hopes up with that. But if he is available there, Cardinals should 100% take him.
If
But
What
he's
I'm hearing
available at
is Tommy
7,
White. That's what I'm hearing.
Tommy White. Dude, every time you say that, people are like, no. I like Tommy White a lot. I think Tommy White's gonna be a big league hitter. Like he has that ability, but like probably not. Probably not number 7. He's fun though. I like Tommy Tank, so he is fun to watch, but I don't think that's
Love
gonna
that
happen.
man.
Sorry. He's great. Yeah.
Hey, let me
Hagen
ask you
Smith though
something.
is exciting, I think. But
I
One
think
more
Hagen
college
Smith.
question.
I think
Go
Hagen
ahead.
Smith's the one guy that could push himself into that consideration, though. Yeah, Savage, I'm a little lower on than most people seem. I still think he's a middle of the first round talent, but I just don't know how the fastball at that velocity is going to play, even with the riding life.
mhm.
One thing that Wyatt Langford's going to make the Rangers, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like the best player in spring training right now. He's a
Yeah,
I mean,
stud.
that's
probably.
hard to believe. Like, I'm a Dylan Cruz guy. We'll continue to ride the Dylan Cruz train. But what Wyatt Langford has done, like at the minor league level and spring training level, is unbelievable. And then you look at like guys as well as like Skeens and all these guys who last year were in the draft. It just seems like the progression of these players is so much quicker than it's ever been in the past.
SEC baseball is so damn hard to be good at. Like those players playing, you're going up against the Paul Skeens every day. Like, well, not him, but you know what I mean. Guys that are just insanely talented. That Rangers outfield is going to be at some point this year. I think he's making the opening day roster. But Langford, Carter, and Adolis Garcia, they're adding that. They're adding Wyatt Langford to a World Series championship team, and Jacob DeGrom's going to be coming back. Yeah, whatever. I wish we could have a Jacob DeGrom. All right, we probably need to wrap this up here soon. We're going pretty long, but anything else that you like? Any other guy you want to highlight? Like, actually, I have one guy, and then we can try to wrap this up. I want to know more about Juan Bin Cho. Win Bin Cho. It's one of the two. Is it Win Bin Cho? Is that how you say it?
I'm not the best with
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I've
pronunciations.
heard
I'm
it say
sorry.
both. I've heard it said both ways, but what do you think of him? He's one of those guys that's just like he has his very tools he has as the prospect evaluators say. What do you think of Juan Bin Cho moving forward?
Yeah, he's one of the more toolsy players in the Cardinal system.
Nailed the
Um,
word. Nailed it.
yeah, so hits the ball hard. Hits the ball hard. His top percentile exit velocities are really hard, which is encouraging. And what you see most of the time with prospects like that, the contact rates are usually not great. The thing about Cho, he's making a lot of contact too. And he's pretty patient at the approach, takes his walks. Would like to see him a little more aggressive inside the strike zone. But this is a guy that's going to need to improve his launch angles. If he wants to maximize his power, he hits a lot of ground balls right now, which I think it's fine in a batting average sense, but to get that slug up, he's got to start, hitting the ball at higher launch angles. But yeah, very impressed by what Cho was able to do last year as a teenager in Palm Beach. And yeah, he should be in the starting outfield for Peoria. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
Last thing I have, Kareem, give me a win total for the 2024 Cardinals.
Oh,
Ah, God. I mean, I want to be optimistic, but the rotation's kind of suspect. I'll say like 83 wins.
oh, you have them making the playoffs with that or no? It was 84 for the
Um,
Diamondbacks last year to sneak in, just for context.
sure. Let's say
The
yes.
Padres just made it tougher, I think, honestly, with Dylan
You don't
Cease.
have to come on here and be that. Like, I think your 83 is very optimistic, to be really honest with you.
That's not
I also,
optimistic.
I do. I also
People are
don't
saying
think the
90.
Cardinals win the Central. That's what I'll say.
Wow. See, okay. You guys aren't baking in trade deadline acquisitions. I see. Just wait until Corbin Burns walks through that door when the Orioles have a bad year. Just wait.
Yeah, because the Orioles are going to deal Corbin after Jack. By the way, Jackson Holiday also, by the way, is going to make the major league team, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Oh, I love it. Baseball's incredible, guys. Baseball is fucking incredible. It is so much fun.
One of a kind. All right, let's get out of here.
All right. Kareem, thank you so much, man, for joining us. We greatly appreciate you. For all of you listening and watching, you can find Kareem on Twitter at Kareem SSN, Kareem Season. Absolutely, that's what we need to know. Or social security number. I'm not sure which it is. Either way is good with me. Prospects Live, St. Louis Sports Net, and Cardinals Prospects. Dude, you're the best. We greatly appreciate it. We need to have you on here more often. Thank you so much for coming on and helping us out with all this, because otherwise Caleb would have talked about Keenan Middleton for 20 minutes.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Love coming on a second time. Hopefully we can make it a third, fourth, and keep doing this. I do want to add one thing. I've been releasing my top 30 prospects on Redbird Rants. So if that's something that interests you, just go on redbirdrants.com and you can find it there.
Is that what Josh does?
Josh Jacobs?
Yeah.
He's on it. Yeah. He's on Redbird Rants.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go read that. Kareem does a great job with that stuff.
100%. Thank you so much for coming on. You want to meet Caleb and I in Memphis for a weekend series at AutoZone?
Don't pressure him into this on the podcast.
I don't know if I can make it, to be honest.
That's a great answer, by the way. That is the perfect answer of all time. Thank you guys, everybody, for listening, for watching, whatever you're doing. We greatly appreciate you all. We will be back next week, and we got starting pitchers, correct?
The most exciting of them all, yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Yes. All right. Hey, everybody, thank you so much. Have an incredible weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Go Cards.